Welcome to SVG-TV News for Thursday, May 5th, 2022. I am Rochelle Batiste with the details. A government is seeking to advance its plans to capitalize on renewable energy through a collaboration with the Canadian-based energy company Evo Technologies. On Tuesday, Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, senior government officials of the energy unit, and representatives of FINLEC held a meeting to discuss how to advance and overcome the setbacks experienced during the last geothermal project. In March 2020, government ordered the Icelandic company Retrofit Geothermal to suspend drilling at the geothermal project site in Bamboo Range after it was discovered there were issues with the permeability of the rock within the wells, which prevented the company from achieving the desired heat of 250 degrees Celsius. Speaking on NBC Radio on Wednesday, PM Gonsalves said the Canadian-based energy company Evo Technologies made a proposal to government for an alternative way to harvest geothermal energy. He said the proposal is being supported by local engineers and energy experts.
Well, Evo has pioneered a particular form of technology. And my understanding that where you do not have to deal with the permeability, you use a loop system with a radiator type structure, and to have the heat come up a different way. The long and short is that all the technical persons on our side, including people at FINLEC, said, well, yes, the technology which they have modeled and everything in Canada, and when they went and they saw it, that it is workable.
PM Gonsalves said the proposal made by the Canadian-based company indicates that it will carry out all the initial work with a tentative timeline set for late 2023.
But in order to minimize the risks here in St. Vincent, they're going to apply the technology at a geothermal resource field in the United States, and then to do essentially a quote-unquote cut and paste application of that applied technology which they have developed in Canada, and they're applying it to an actual geothermal source in the United States. All of the initial work they're going to be doing is at their own expense, hoping to be back towards the end of 2023 in a meaningful way. Maybe in 2024 we can commence something there.
Governments hope to see an advancement in the construction of the Black Sands Resort has been stalled yet again. The resort in Peters Hope has experienced delays and gone well past the promised 2019 completion date. Representatives of the Canadian company Pace Development had claimed that the delays in construction were due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the 2021 eruption of Lasso Freire volcano. The Canadian investors were scheduled to convene a meeting with government in March, but that date was missed. Responding to questions on the project posed by the opposition during today's sitting of Parliament, Minister of Tourism Carlos James said the postponement of the meeting was due to issues with travel arrangements.
In fact, a meeting which was originally scheduled for April of this year between the government, the CEO of Pace Development, Mr. Romano, and his technical team will take place before the end of this month, and this month being May 2022. Madam Speaker, the delay in this meeting, I'm advised, and an individual who is considered important to the discussions had some difficulties and unable to travel at that particular time. And as such, the meeting was rescheduled for this month.
Minister James revealed that Pace Development has indicated new timelines for the completion of the resort. However, the tourism head said he would prefer to wait until after the meeting concludes before divulging the details.
So we may very well see whether it's a similar outcome or an outcome which ensures the viability of the project in a scale long form for pace development, but those discussions will be fleshed out during the meeting when they come here. I'll ensure, again, Madam Speaker, that not only the meeting will take place, but I will ensure that we have the developers available for the media press briefing to outline following the meeting how they intend to move forward, and they will speak to the development as to what they may want to put in place in terms of going forward. And we can always get some more information in a more detailed way once we get to that stage of the discussions.
And government has sought the assistance of the St. Lucian government to solve the challenges being faced by residents and the traveling public at the river crossings in the North Windward area. Area Representative and Minister of Transport and Works, Montgomery Daniel, said St. Lucia has agreed to loan SVG 3 Bailey bridges, which are to be placed at the Overland River, Noel River, and the Rabuka Dry River. Speaking in Parliament today, Minister Daniel explained the deposits from the 2021 eruption of Lasafre volcano are being moved into the crossings by heavy rains, creating hazards.
Whenever it rains, the erodible material upstream is being deposited downstream onto the swale as the water runs to the sea, leaving behind sometimes up to 4 to 5 feet of material deposited on the swale.
Minister Daniel said government had allocated $20 million in the 2022 budget for volcano rebuilding effort, out of which 3 Bailey bridges were to be purchased. He said that although the order was already placed, they will arrive on island later than anticipated, and a decision was made to reach out to St. Lucia for assistance.
And the Ministry of Transport and Works has made a request to the government of St. Lucia to borrow up to 3 bridges from St. Lucia once available. I would have personally had discussions with the Minister of Transport and Works in St. Lucia, and he is willing to assist St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And equally, the Honorable Prime Minister would have been having discussions with the Prime Minister of St. Lucia on this matter. And so, a team of engineers from St. Lucia will come to St. Vincent next week. Even equally, we in the Ministry of Transport and Works, we have also organized a visit with our engineers to go to St. Lucia to determine the applicability of these bridges and to make the necessary arrangements to have them come to St. Vincent.
The Camden Park Health Center is officially reopened after being closed for a period to allow for refurbishment work to be carried out. The center received a facelift of its nurses' quarters, examination room, and casualty room at a cost of $884,000 EC dollars. The facility is a third to be reopened in recent times. The others are Sandy Bay Health Center, the Selena Cloud and Smart Hospital in Union Island, and the Myro Health Center. Minister of Health, Sinclair Jimmy Prince, who was given a tour of the facility, said residents waited for 2 years for the reopening of the facility, and it was worth the wait as they now have access to health care in a more spacious and modern facility.
The persons in this area went to Camden, to Bookament, and also to Clare Valley. We'd like to thank the nurses for taking care of them. But this is a large area, and of course, you know the reason why we would have to have a very large clinic in this area. There have been some improvements. We have an area for nurses, those on call. We have a number of other rooms, especially the examination rooms. They have been expanded, and the casualty rooms expanded, etc. The grounds themselves have been expanded. So it has been a major improvement for this particular facility. And the people of Camden Park have been without this facility for the past 2 years. Of course, we apologize for the long wait, but you know, we had COVID, we have problems with our supply chain, etc. And therefore, it was not possible for us to deliver it before now. But we had promised some time ago that we would deliver this particular health facility before the end of April. We are doing so now. Of course, it's just about 2 days into May, but that's okay. We hope that the people will continue to come to this clinic and to avail themselves of all the services which are available here.
Public health nurse Suzette Kocho said the nurses are appreciative of the improvements to the facility, adding the pledge to give the best nursing care service to patients.
I say, as the public health nurse attached to the Pembroke Health District, I'm really happy to see that the Camden Park Clinic has been reopened, and it's really a nice facility, and we really appreciate the Ministry of Health, Wellness and the Environment for doing such a wonderful job. And as we promise that we are going to take care of this facility as we give the best nursing care services to the persons within this community.
The Camden Park Health Center serves the entire Camden Park community and sometimes neighboring villages. St. Vincent and the Grenadines has been recently awarded in Ecuador by the Food and Agriculture Organization, the FAO. The award comes as SVG has been able to overcome hunger, even as it experienced great challenges, yet maintaining food supply at a reasonable cost. Minister of Agriculture Subota Caesar said the award was presented at a recently concluded FAO 37th Regional Conference for Latin America and the Caribbean in Ecuador.
The FAO gave us an award in Ecuador. Basically, we have been able to reduce hunger and undernourishment in the Caribbean. And food in St. Vincent and the Grenadines is accessible, it's affordable, and it's available. And we have been able to do this even though we are facing the vagaries of the eruptions of last year. And we are also grappling with the aftermath, immediate aftermath of the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic.
The conference in Ecuador brought together ministers from Latin America and the Caribbean to help foster healthy diets, galvanize inclusive rural development, and promote sustainable and resilient agriculture in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as to discuss ways to mitigate the impact of rising food and fertilizer prices on the region, the world's largest net food exporter. Despite the 4 murders over the Labor Day weekend, April 29 to May 2nd, there is a decline in crime in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Speaking on the program on VC3 last evening, head of the Criminal Investigations Department of the Royal St. Vincent and the Grenadines Police Force, SOP Claston Francis, said compared to last year, the RSVG Police Force has seen a 2% decrease in crimes for this period.
Well, in spite of the recent murders, of course, everybody will be a concern, and it could, put fear into Vincentians as to what is happening in St. Vincent. But we're still seeing a downward trend in crimes in general. And due to the pandemic, we have had a significant reduction in crimes between this year and last year. But when you compare last year's record to present day record, it's balanced off, more or less. It's balanced off. In fact, there is let's say about a 2% decrease in crimes when compared to last year. Although we have seen some increases in the past month or so, but it then took a downward trend within the last few weeks. For homicides, last year around this time we would have had about 13 homicides. Today's date we have had 14. So it's more or less balanced off in terms of murders and homicides.
The RSVG Police Force is, however, seeing an increase in theft, damage to property, burglary, and bodily harm. Assistant Superintendent of Police Elwin Richards said that the country is currently experiencing an issue with illegal firearms, which is the cause of most of the murders taking place.
Well, what we've noticed is that over the years, we found that a number of the the murders being committed by using firearms, and we're thinking that we have an issue or a problem with illegal firearms in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. For example, last year we would have had 31 murders committed. Of those 31, we had 22 where firearms were used. This year, where we had 14 murders to date, we have 8 of those by the use of firearms. I just want to bring this in the midst because we would have lost one of our brilliant mind in the term of a woman over the weekend. And over the years, according to the statistics, I've did some little research to see how many of our women we lost in terms of being murdered. And I find that, well, for this year, we've had 2 women of the 14. In 2020, we lost 5 women. In 2018, we lost 7. And in 2017, we lost 6.
Commenting on the murders which took place over the Labor Day holiday weekend, former president of the SVG Christian Council, Reverend Adolph Davis, said it is a troubling situation, noting that the problem that comes with crime is not defined by a spike.
Somehow I think the spikes do serve the purpose of awakening and stimulating a certain amount of interest, but I think the problem of crime is a much larger issue that at times it's highlighted with these kinds of weekends. And it's interesting because I think for the past 3, 4, 5 years, I could be wrong, I think in every year we have had, whether it is a weekend or a couple of weeks, where you've just had a spike, and then the rest is scattered through the year. And so I think even when we reflect on the issue, I think the spike provides us with an awakening and an opportunity to reflect. But it is important, I think, for us to understand that this is a much bigger issue than this weekend and a much bigger issue than the number of homicides we have in a given year. And I think the more we can appreciate how broad, how vast the issue is, I think it positions us better to be able to address it.
Women are again being urged to file a police report at the earliest signs of domestic abuse. The advice from President of Leave Out Violence in SVG, Nyla John, who spoke to SVG-TV News on the heels of the slaying of 41-year-old family councillor Luan Roberts. Over the weekend, news of Roberts' death shocked Vincentians after her body was discovered in the rear of a vehicle in the vicinity of Bucament Bay Secondary School. 40-year-old Renal Roberts, who is alleged to be the ex-partner of Luan, was yesterday charged with her murder. John advised women not to keep silent when they recognize signs of abuse. She also urged Vincentians to advocate against domestic abuse on a daily basis and not only when an incident that results in death occurs.
There's always signs that get to that point. So I don't think someone just naturally just comes out and gets a gun and shoots you or gets a knife and stabs you. But there are, there's the verbal, the controlling, telling you you can't go here or you can't go by yourself. These are all signs that people need to be very aware of. Abuse is not only in the physical, it's several different ways that domestic violence occurs. Very, very important that you do not just keep that silent. You have to tell someone, and I tell women, don't sit, and men, don't take the abuse. Make a report it to the police, so that there is a record of it.
John made a suggestion for the Royal St. Vincent and the Grenadines Police Force to implement a domestic violence unit with specially trained staff who can provide the necessary interventions for victims of domestic abuse.
I honestly believe that there should be a domestic violence unit because that is really needed in St. Vincent. They have this sexual offenses unit, and I have spoken to them about having something like that. I tell people two things that are quite important is, domestic violence is a very sensitive topic, and so is sexual violence, rape, molestation. And it should never be where a woman feels as if she's going into a police station and she has to make a report just there and everybody's listening to her.
Children and adults can now sit and enjoy reading a selection of culturally relevant books. The Early Learners Program Right to Read book launch was held today at the National Library, which showcased a wide selection of books written by both children and adults. The program is an initiative between USAID, the OECS, and the Ministry of Education. Speaking at today's launch, Senior Education Officer Aldia Dyer highlighted the goal of the initiative and noted that the program was extended across the OECS.
Activity is coming out of the Early Learners Program, which was implemented a few years ago between 2015 and 2020, and the aim of this program was to improve reading competencies among students from kindergarten to grade 2 in our schools. The greatness of this program is that it also afforded our nationals the opportunity to write about our own Vincentian culture. And I must say that this program extended across the OECS region. So we hope that our learners will be encouraged to read as they would read about their own local experiences.
Senior Education Officer for Primary Schools, Mavis Joseph, said the Right to Read program was designed to have early readers advance beyond their grade level. Joseph further expanded on the steps leading up to today's launch and thanked all those who were involved.
The rationale was that once students secured a solid foundation in reading during the early grades, their academic pursuit would be much more successful. Given the understanding that reading remains one of the major hurdles facing students across the sub-region, the stakeholders at the inception meeting readily bought into the fundamental concepts presented to develop the reading skills of students in the targeted classes. A National Advisory Committee was immediately established. Thereafter, the project management team and the project implementation team facilitated the execution of the ELP in earnest effective January 2017. With a dedicated ELP team, education officers in the Ministry of Education and partners of the other OECS